Welcome to Lawyer Boss Life.
My name is Alay. I'm a law firm growth expert and the founder of Law Firm Success Group. We have worked with hundreds of attorneys across the country to help them grow their law firms while not working nights and weekends. And today we're talking about the top 3 signs that your hourly rate is too high. So this is a concern that a lot of clients have when we start working with them. If they don't have a full book of business, they are very concerned that their hourly rate is already too high. And when it comes time to think about raising their rate, they are incredibly hesitant to do that. So here are 3 signs that should tell you if your hourly rate is too high, so that by the end of this video or this podcast, if you're listening that way, you will be able to tell if your hourly rate is too high or not. And just to let you know, in most cases, your hourly rate will not be too high. We all have a tendency to undercharge our hourly rate. It's just how we're wired as humans. So if you're not sure, your rate's probably a little bit too low. Okay, so here we are. The first sign that your hourly rate is too high. And this can come oftentimes after you've just raised it. If you see a drop off in your conversion rate, that could be a sign that your hourly rate is now too high. As an example of that, let's say currently you are retaining on average 6 out of 10 clients. So for every 10 consultations you have, 6 of them become clients. Okay, that's a 60% conversion rate. That's not terrible. Okay, that's not bad. There may be a little bit of room for improvement, but that's not bad. Now what happens is you raise your rate, and all of a sudden, instead of 6 out of 10 clients retaining, that drops to half. So now only 3 out of 10 clients are retaining, and this is right after you raise your rate. That kind of a sudden drop is a clear sign that you have now priced yourself beyond the reach of your typical clients that find you. Now, a couple of things might be going on here. One is that the clients that are referred to you, can't afford that higher rate. They just simply can't afford it. What's more likely is that the clients that are referred to you are finding those legal services elsewhere for less cost. And there's lots of ways they could be doing that. There's a couple of things you could do about that. One is you could drop your rate back down, right? That is not a fun thing, but that is a option that you always have when you're considering a rate increase. Is if you raise your rate and all of a sudden you realize it's too high, you just drop it down. It's not that big of a deal. So that is something you can do. The other thing you can do, and this is much more difficult, is to actually elevate your marketing game. So now you're targeting a different kind of client who can really afford the rate that you are now charging. That's typically a longer term play, but depending on the situation, it could be really interesting. For example, those clients that are retaining you, those 3 out of 10 clients now, they're now retaining you at a higher rate, and there's a reason that they're doing that. If you tap into that and you start to market your services towards those types of clients, as your client profile changes, your conversion rate will increase and you'll get back to that 6 out of 10 conversion rate. So you'll be back to that 60%. The difference is now these are clients who can afford that higher rate and are oftentimes a better fit for your practice. So there's a couple of things you can do there. Again, just to recap, if your conversion rate drops after a rate increase, one thing you can do is just drop your rate back down. Super easy. The longer term play is to change your marketing so that you're going after your best clients, those 3 out of 10 that are retaining you, even though your rate is higher, and trying to fill your book of business with those best clients. Okay. So those are 2 options there. That's the first sign. The second sign that your hourly rate is too high is you may start to run into collections challenges. So examples of those are clients are now calling to either out and out dispute the line items on your bill, or they're arguing about it, especially if this is a change. Like, let's say your rate has been static for a while, you raise your rate, and now you've noticed A lot of clients are calling you asking questions about this line item on the invoice and that line item on the invoice, and why are you charging me that much for that kind of thing. That is a sign that your hourly rate may now be too high. Another collection challenge sign is that clients are now slower to pay. So where before they were paying on time and promptly, now all of a sudden that's slowed down. And that could be indicative of the fact that they are seeing their legal costs rise. And when people get an expensive bill that they don't understand, their subconscious action is to actually not take any action at all and to not pay it or to delay paying it a bit longer than they otherwise would have. So that's a second collection challenge is they're slower to pay. The clearest sign that your rate is too high, and this is a collection challenge number three kind of thing, is that clients will actually stop work and they will, when they get to a logical stopping point in the project, they will contact you and say, "Thank you, we're kind of done." Or sometimes in the midst of a project or a case, they will call you and say, "We're done." If either of those things happen, and they're happening especially after a rate increase relatively shortly thereafter, it's a really good sign that your hourly rate is too high. You've now priced yourself beyond what your current clients are willing to pay, and they're potentially looking for outside counsel. Again, these issues don't happen very often, but if you do see signs like this where they start to argue about the bills, they're slower to pay than they were before, or they're flat out stopping work, those are signs that your hourly rate is now too high for your clients. Okay, the third sign that your hourly rate is too high, and this is the clearest indicator of all, your clients actually let you know. When you send out that rate increase letter, you might get immediate feedback from them saying, "Oh my gosh, this is really, really high," or they may say things like, "Wow, that is a big rate increase. I'm not sure if we can afford to continue with the scope of legal services that you're providing to us." Or they might come back with, "Oh, I see the rate increase. That's a big rate increase. And one of the reasons we were working with you is because your rate was X. Your rate is now Y, a lot higher. And so we're kind of thinking about, how we should continue working with you." So that immediate client feedback is absolutely gold. And if you're getting feedback like that, it could be a sign that your hourly rate is too high. And in fact, it probably is because your clients are telling you that. One of the things that uh, clients sometimes do, if they're open to it, and this requires you to have a really good relationship with your clients, actually going out to some of your best clients and saying, "Look, costs go up every year. My rate is going to have to go up. Here's kind of what I'm thinking. Is that too much for you, or do you think that's fair and something that you would accept?" And actually kind of previewing the rate with your best clients before you put it into effect. Again, this takes a tremendous amount of trust in your clients. You have to really trust that they're going to give you a genuine answer and not just say, "Oh no, that's too high because I really don't want to pay more for your services." So it's not applicable in every case, but if you do have clients like that whom you really trust, that can really do a lot to cement the relationship. And you can imagine what the client is thinking, right? They're like, "Wow, this person whom I trust is actually talking to me about raising their prices to me because they believe I'm going to give them an honest answer. They really trust me and they really value me to be having this conversation." And so it builds a lot of trust as well, but you need to start from a place where you can trust what they're going to be telling you. So we've now covered three signs that your hourly rate is too high. The first one is a drop off in your conversion rate. The second one are various kinds of collections challenges. And the third one is direct client feedback. And again, these are real-time indicators that your hourly rate is too high. And so you're typically going to see this after you do a rate increase. So it's something to be aware of when you're doing that. But what we found with most of our clients is that that is just not really an issue. Very, very few times has it happened that we have had clients that price themselves too high. Most of the time, our clients are priced a little on the lower side, and when they raise their fees, their clients accept it without batting an eye at all. They may get a couple questions, but overall, it's fine. And if they do lose clients, they typically are the clients that they hated working with anyway, because these are clients who could barely afford their services. These are clients who would complain about every bill before the rate increase was done. These are clients who would have hard times coming up with retainers. These are clients who wouldn't pay on time. These kinds of clients and clients who would question their advice have two issues. One is they either don't value the legal services, or two, they're flat out not able to afford them. Either way, the price increase is going to start to filter those clients out. And that is absolutely not a bad thing. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you want to work with us to grow your firm without working nights and weekends, visit lawfirmsuccessgroup.com and schedule a meeting with me. And if you like this video, hit the like button and send it to someone who you think is really thinking about whether or not they should increase their rate. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.